We're testing here again. Stockinette's working just fine. Normally that's a given, but in this particular case, when we received this carriage, it wouldn't knit in normal stockinette position, aka B position, and now it is.
I want to point something out right here. There's some damage to the number dial, and what it looks like is that in an attempt to pry this center button off, there's a metal piece under here, and you just get under the edge to flip that center up, and it looks like somebody got too far and they actually depressed this.
So if you're working on yours, something to keep an eye on.
This is doing your own work tips. Now these two center buttons came in working improperly, and I cured that, and then I went to put the sinker plate on, and I realized these two caps, when you pop them off, look almost identical. And if you haven't done a few thousand of them, it's real easy to put the bottom cap on the top and the top cap on the bottom. And if you do that with this particular sinker plate arrangement, it actually depresses the bottom button when you try to put the sinker plate on. So you must mark these when you take them off if you're doing your own work. I always take a black magic marker, and when I pop the top one off, I make a black line on the indentation, so I've tagged the top.
But now these are sorted out, right?
Yes, they're ready to go.
One other unusual feature of this little carriage is its row counter outfit. The row counter tripper is unusual, but we're not having any problems with it knitting, and that's the main thing. And now the sinker plate is correctly seated. What we're doing today is testing, is this a 970? Yeah.
Yes.
On a punch card machine. So I can't work on KC2, but KC1 works the way that KC always does and will allow us to test the vast majority of the functions. So on KC1, I'm knitting across so that the needles get memorized. Now I'll hit part and set the card to advance across where you couldn't see it, but it's on the right, you know that. And now we'll just do some slip stitch and see how it's working. I actually already know how it's working because, of course, I did some of this before we got on the film. But we need for the customer to feel confident and see it working.
I actually did some of this myself before we put any yarn on it. That's the easy way.
And now I'm going to change to tuck, if you want to show the buttons go in. They automatically release to the part buttons, so.
Yeah, this one started out being a little problematic, and the customer did some cleaning. It became more problematic. But what I found when I went in there was a lot of springs that were no longer connected to where they should have been, keeping a flipper in a specific spot. This is not an uncommon thing to have a spring flip off, even while you're just using the carriage. But what that means is the flipper should be staying in one position and is not.
Now we're going to test the same exact pattern. And I better roll the cart back so I have a little bit.
We're not using our little green clips.
No. We're going to do this fair isle now by inserting MC. I should say depressing the MC button.
Right. That purple and white makes a really nice
I was just thinking that. I'm using odds and ends of yarn. Both of these are left over from big projects. But I think it's so festive, I'm definitely planning to keep it in mind for future projects.
Save those two ends for testing. We always test once to make sure everything is correct, and then we test again so we can send the customer a video of their machine working beautifully.
Yeah, it's just nice to know for sure. And it also means that if something happens in transit, we have proof for the post office that you guys did this.
That's right. It was working when it left here.
I'm going to hang up the spare color, and we're just going to do some short rowing now.
Okay.
So I've got this set on H, 2 in the hole, knit across, 1 more in the hole, 2 in the hole, knit across, 1 more in the hole, and like that.
We're making a boot heel for our sock. It's just Not a sock on the other side.
Right, but, oops, I put too many in holes, so one back. What this is an automatic wrap, even though I'm not using the working yarn to wrap around the adjacent needle, we won't get a hole. Because of that second needle that comes out after the pass. And I've got weights plus my thumb helping.
And don't you want them to knit back from hold?
I do, but I'm going to wait till I've got all these back.
Okay.
Knit a couple rows. Put everything in D position. End button. And across. This is one of the things that can slip through the cracks if you don't check it, because stockinette will knit fine, but if something's detached, you can't do this.
That's right, and I will point out that the button on the outside of the carriage cover works a slide underneath the carriage, and that is something that does get misaligned if you loosen the wrong screw at the wrong time and you think, oh, that's not it, and you tighten it back up. That slide can really get hinky on you.
We're going to do a little weaving for you, and look over here, Jack. Weaving brushes should be down. I failed to put them down at first. It didn't weave, and I'm so embarrassed. Jack said, weaving brushes? I'm supposed to be the knitter.
Like I said, I knit real well with no yarn on there.
In case you've never woven before, you almost don't have to manually place this into its little notch. If you just hold on to the yarn, the carriage will come across and grab it in the right position. But you do have to move it back and forth so that it is always
Let you stop right there. This piece right here always sticks out, and it's just basically there, but that's the notch that grabs that weaving line.
There's also a little sort of indentation on the sinker plate itself, hard to spot from here. But when those things align, the yarn has no choice. We have seen a problem with this, not on this particular machine, but these can easily get bent and then weaving doesn't work right. But they usually can be restored to their correct position. Weaving, moving, weaving. And now I'll just do a few plain rows so we can have a look at the swatch. Get rid of KC, because if I leave it on, I might wish I hadn't.
Well, and we want to do some stockinette very smoothly, and then we can look at what we've done. Mm-hmm. Oh, that purple and white is a very nice color.
Weaving only really shows up on the purl side, which is interesting, and it's less stretchy than most knitting, and it tends to widen the knitting just a little, you can see. Here it's kind of a subtle shadowy thing. However, Fair Isle is awesome.
Yes.
Tuck. Below it, slip, which of course is always narrower than either tuck or stockinette, and good old stockinette. And this is where I forgot to change from KC to N, and I let it drop stitches. It'll happen.